Hi, this is the co-executive directors of CleanAirNow. CleanAirNow is a climate justice organization grounded in the principles of environmental justice. We work to challenge systemic oppression in place, such as the industry, the government, and academic policies and practices to protect health and dismantle environmental racism. Clean Air Now started by community members concerned about their environmental exposures from diesel trucks, rail, and industry, all located within miles from their homes, schools, and playgrounds. And how all of this is directly impacting their health, the health of their families, and their children. These same communities are experiencing higher rates of asthma, cardiovascular disease, a life expectancy that's been cut short by 22 years, and we're the same communities that experience the highest rates of mortality from COVID-19 in our area. This is no coincidence. Kansas City has a history of redlining, as many other parts of the country. The EPA, government, and agencies have failed the community, and so they had enough. Community members organized and educated themselves about the health impacts. They created an air monitoring network because the government one, not in their area, was not capturing their lived experiences. Community members are the experts of the neighborhoods, yet they are the ones left out of decision-making spaces.
Thank you, Athena. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the work that we do. So through the environmental health and justice projects that are guided and community-led, we work alongside the community to identify what are those priorities that we need to be looking at, right? Because in our local communities here, everything's a priority, right? There's a lot of intersectional issues, whether it's housing, energy and security, homelessness, and then the impacts to health and the decreased and the shortened life expectancy, right? And so some of the work that Clean Air Now has done is holding these polluters accountable, the agencies that are tasked to protect public health, and also look at regulations and rulemakings, right? When we talk about environmental justice from the perspective of the work that we do in the community, is that environmental justice really is grounded in those principles of climate and environmental justice. However, the work that we do is to make sure that any projects has a direct benefit to the community, whether it's the work that they're doing or they're involved in, but also the policies and community solutions that we know can bring a direct benefit to the communities, because they are the ones impacted by all these stressors I mentioned, but also impacted by a host of things, right? That sometimes it's just too much. It's just too much for a community to deal with. So we prioritize intergenerational leadership as well, because we also know there's cultural sensitivity within our neighborhoods, whether they're immigrants from other parts of the world, living in same neighborhoods. It's so important that we don't disconnect that fabric, right, of where they come from, right? That we make sure they're very intentional, that we, through our projects and organizing and workshops, that we don't separate the youth from the elderly, because there's so much knowledge in that space. And so one of the other things that we do as an organization, we work, like I said, we work on policies, but we also provide comment and testimony alongside the community on issues that matter to them, right? Whether it's a climate plan that has no environmental justice focus or equity in it, making sure that we can give recommendations that are very well fact-based and with research and data, government data, but also community data, right? Because they have been collecting their own data for over a decade now, to make sure that this can support their lived experiences, but also help them in the policy and the advocacy. And so one of the things that we also do as an organization, as my colleague Athena mentioned, organizations started around the impacts of the transportation sector. So trade has been very instrumental in us, in the work that we do here locally, making sure that when we look at the impacts of the local trade, that we also look at the global trade impacts, right? So that the things that are happening here are also happening in communities abroad, right? In other countries like the diaspora, right? African diaspora and other places. These things are happening in other communities. So we want to make sure that through this work that we are doing, that we don't there's that ecological place knowledge, that we are also very intentional of making sure that when we are advocating, that we don't shift the harm of pollution to other communities, like I say, either locally or across the country, because there is a lot of emphasis on new in the energy sector, right, to moving in the direction that is truly clean. However, there is also the industries that have been capitalizing on our air. They monetize our air, they monetize our health, they monetize our water, they trade it for pollution. The industry does that trading mechanism. So we want to make sure that it doesn't have an impact on other communities abroad as well. And so through our activism, we are very intentional about those things and making sure that we voice these concerns at every level of government, academia, and making sure that they understand that the false solutions to the climate crisis, which is going to continue to perpetuate environmental racism, if we don't really utilize that local community knowledge and use that as the driving force to change decision making. So with that, we're gonna stop, and just wanted to share a little bit of the work that we are doing out here in Kansas City. Thank you.